Um, so when you pull it apart, there's a little motor inside, and that's where that wooden disc piece comes from. The whole idea of these, it's for, for the education system, especially for STEM education. It lets you build robots. And for me, I always like to work in my shop environment and I'll make things that move. So that's where the business name came from. But I always found these little tiny motors that they use them a lot in schools now were really hard to mount into things. So I decided to make this block that snaps over it. And this is like a wood material that you can drive screws into and cut corners off, that sort of thing. So it's, as opposed to being a click together solution, it's more of a, it inspires especially kids to learn how to use tools, because you're going to actually have to cut it and drive screws into it and drill holes and that sort of thing. So, bit of a slow time right now, but I guess you could say luckily we're not a big company yet, so it's been easy to pivot or pause, and really think about how we're going to do things moving forward. So fortunate, I guess you could say that way, and it's given me time to make a crap load of buttons.
Well, I think it's awesome what you've done, Dan. And I think that, the people I've met here today, everybody's contributing in some way. And how fortunate for everyone that you were able to do this business pivot. So, how do we find out more about you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, all that kind of good stuff. The main thing is the link that Leanne popped in there. That's the Make Stuff Move.
Make Stuff Move.
MakeStuffMove.com is the site with the store, and we don't really have anything really for sale at the moment because we were paused. But about the business itself, and then there's the buttons page that's linked there is about this specific effort we're doing right now. And then you mentioned Invent Art, so that's my other. I'd call that a lot more local. I tend to work obviously in the Kawartha Lakes area in Toronto with that business, and it's a bit of a mix of everything. I'm kind of a technical guy, and I have an animation background, so classical art, but then I've always been a bit of a nerd, so I found a way to mix the two things together. So I do a bit of web design and development and branding. I'll do logos and a bit of everything. So the Make Stuff Move was more of my startup business that I'm trying to create an actual product. So yeah, I've obviously encouraged people to have a look and let me know what you think.
Yeah, well, I definitely will, because I'm all about creation and I'm really intrigued by what you do. And I'll do everything I can to chase down some referrals for you, Dan, because I think people like you just are cherished. So thanks for contributing. And it doesn't look, and you know what? Thanks for sharing on screen. I'm sure it's a really interesting story. People are going to really love to listen. So thanks for joining us today.
Does anybody have any questions, I guess? Like I see, we got the chat window here. If anybody wants to know about the process or anything else about the machine or how this works, or
it looks like Julie's got her hand up. If anybody has any questions, maybe what we can do is put the questions in the chat, but I don't actually see any questions yet.
One little thing that didn't come up, I guess, or I haven't talked about, is where the message came from on the buttons, the thank you and the heart. To be honest, it was just I knew I needed to make some buttons, and I made a button and there was blank space on it. And because I can engrave with my machine, I thought, well, we got to put something on there. So, it was really nothing more than wanting to give a positive message. And I've said this to some of you that are sewing. Yes, of course, this message is for the frontline workers. That's a given. But this is also for everybody that's sewing as well. It's a thank you to everybody that's just helping out and doing something to contribute right now. So that's really what it's about. It's not. It was a simple just thought that I just did and ran with it. And I know that's what a lot of people really enjoy about these. So yeah, it's been good to be able to do that.
Now we do have a question. I got one question. Jenny. She's looking for. She's asking, is there a minimum order amount?
So not really. So the way this works, most people would know if you've gotten them already. These are all free. The only thing I'm asking for, of course, is the help with the hard costs, so material and shipping. So in most cases, I guess the way to look at it is, let me grab one of them here. So I have these like flat envelopes. They're kind of like a rigid envelope, and they're good because the buttons can go in them and stay flat enough that I can send these out letter mail. Which is cheaper. So I can fit, I've got a bigger one of these too. I can fit up to 300 in one of these. The smaller one's about $3 to ship, and I can fit about 200 in that. So that's kind of the threshold for an order that where the shipping cost is going to be minimized. As soon as we go over that, I have boxes I've been shipping out that end up costing about $14 to 17, depends on where it goes in Canada. And those I can fit about 1,000 in a box. So I mean, I've done orders as small as 30 to 50 buttons. If that's all you need, then of course, get a hold of me and I can get them out to you. And I mean, up to, well, if you talk about Canada Sews, up to 60,000 in one order. So I mean, but very common. I would say probably the most common bigger order that I'm getting where somebody wants to, is about 1,000. So it kind of worked out that I had a bunch of boxes that I normally used for shipping my products out, that just were a perfect box to throw 1,000 of them in. So
for sure.
Yeah. So that's kind of, like I say, no real minimum order. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really count the buttons. This is my measuring tool. It's like if I fill it up to the lines, it's 100 buttons. So I usually fill it right up, so you get a couple extra in there.
Well, Jenny says so cool, and Julie is saying everybody loves those buttons. Julie's also sent you a smile. Leanne said thank you, Dan. Julie said Alberta loves the buttons. And and Jenny's laughing because that's awesome. You know what? Thank you so much for standing up and sharing, and for contributing to this project. It's people like you that make, like I heard Leanne say earlier, it's everybody coming together. And and I think and I'm right now, I don't know about you, I'm very proud of Canadians and the way they've come together, and kudos to Leanne for leading the charge, and for everyone who's contributed. Thanks very much, Dan.
Yeah, great. Well, everybody have a good day, and I'll see you. Maybe I'll pop in later on tonight when I get home.
Sounds good.